Academica Media. You are listening to Charter School Superstars, bringing you the voices of an education revolution.
Welcome back, everybody, to our continuing live stream coverage from the Florida Charter Schools Conference in Orlando, Florida. We are just outside here in the exhibit hall, approaching very closely our final hour of our 7-hour live stream. We've held the stream the whole time. The internet hasn't crashed. How we've been able to do that, I'll never know, but we've been very lucky and very blessed, not just to have good quality streaming the whole time, but blessed with some of the great guests that we've gotten to talk to today. It's been a joy for me. It's been a joy for Lynn Tech, who was here earlier, and for Liliana Salazar, who was here earlier. Just such a fun day. And we got another great guest here right now. We are joined by the Director of Community Relations for Chrysalis Health, a provider of behavioral and mental health services for charter schools. You can find out more by visiting chrysalishealth.com. Blaire Jackson is our guest. Hey, Blaire.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you. Man, this is an important topic right now. I mean, just in the last 3 years in Florida, in terms of what schools have been facing between the Parkland shooting, between the COVID pandemic, a lot of things that have had adverse impact on students' mental health. And as a result, schools are taking a greater focus than ever and investing more resources than ever in mental health and bringing in a lot of outside expert providers like yours to help fill this very important need for students. Can you talk about how the nature of your work has changed just in the last 3 years?
For sure. So since the beginning of time with Chrysalis, we've kind of worked pretty closely with schools. But like you said, over the last 3 years, it's really been a push to make sure mental health and mental wellness is, kind of being supported within the schools. So we've had clinicians now that are almost kind of partnered with most schools throughout the school districts, but also with charter and private schools as well. We've been partnering with the public school districts throughout the state of Florida, like I said, for a while now. But going into the private sector and also the charter schools has been kind of new for us as well. But what we've been able to do is kind of actually identify therapists who go to the schools and actually be present at the school that entire day to be available for any needs that they have.
I want the viewers to get a better idea of the services you provide. Can you walk us through sort of what the beginning process looks like for an intervention? If a charter school leader reaches out to your organization and says that they're in need of some of the services that you provide, how does that process start?
Well, how that happens is through the school administration, whoever it may be. It can come from a teacher, it can come from the school counselor, social worker, whoever's associated with that school who has eyes on that student or that family. So it can also come from a concerned parent who goes to a school and says, hey, we need help. And then from there, they make a referral over to us, and then we do our due diligence to make contact, and we schedule an appointment with them. And that initial appointment is just a psychosocial assessment just to assess where they are and diagnose mental health if need be. In some cases, they may not even be diagnosed with mental health. They just need a referral to some other service because they need assistance with something else. But if they are diagnosed and they meet the criteria for mental health services, from there, we then assign them to a therapist who will do weekly visits with them. So we have weekly therapy sessions, which are usually an hour long. That happens literally every week, but in some cases, based on the individual, they can have multiple sessions per week. And then they can also have psychiatric services as well, medication management that we can have if need be. And outside of that, targeted case management as well. So targeted case management where they just wrap all services around. So not limited to mental health. It can be for housing needs. It can be for food services. It can literally be for anything.
And these mental health interventions, are they happening on the school campus? Are they happening in doctors' offices? Are they happening through a telehealth setting?
Through all settings.
Yes, is the answer.
Yeah. So it can happen in the school. It can happen, like you said, at a doctor's office. It happens at home. We actually go into the homes to visit them as well. So typically before COVID kind of took over the world, we were actually doing some telehealth before that as well. So we do telehealth as well, but our bread and butter was more so going in the schools, going to the homes, meeting people where they are. If they wanted us to meet them at a park, we'll meet them at a park. If they wanted to meet us at McDonald's, we meet them at McDonald's. So literally, we are all about the convenience of the individual who needs services.
Wow, that's really, really important. And as you were sort of suggesting there, telehealth has perhaps played a bigger role in the services that you're providing since the pandemic hit?
For sure. So what we've been able to do with telehealth, obviously, and right now we're about 50-50. We're doing about 50% in person and about 50% telehealth.
And what would you say was it before the pandemic hit?
Before the pandemic, we were about 90% face-to-face.
Wow,
and
okay.
10%
big
telehealth.
shift.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So so it's definitely been a big shift, but it also has helped. It's actually been an asset to provide services, because now we're not limited to say, hey, we can't come to you face to face or whatever the case may be. There's no limits. We can literally meet with anyone anywhere in the state through telehealth. So
one of the challenges that administrators often communicate to me in terms of being able to bring in an organization like yours to provide interventions is identifying students that have issues in the first place. And I've seen some states do some pretty innovative things in this area to try to identify these particular cases. There have been a few states which have started to pass laws allowing students to take mental health days as excused absences.
Right.
And so not only does that prevent a student from having unexcused absences for mental health, but it's a way for a school to identify a student that's having trouble. And when the student takes the mental health day, you can then refer that student to services and get them the help they need. But in the school districts that don't have some of those mechanisms in place, do you have any advice for the school leaders out there and how you can identify when students are having issues?
What we've typically done, we actually do trainings. We go into the schools, we do trainings with them, we give them signs and symptoms to look for, just so they do have some of that education piece, because sometimes they don't know. So we don't only just work with the student and families for services, we also work with the school as well, because we want to educate them on, signs and symptoms to look for, but also what we do and the resources and who would be appropriate for services.
And so it really has to be a team effort, this identification piece. This can't just be something that the school counselors are trained in. You're saying everybody on campus has to be able to recognize the signs, because the student could be manifesting those signs in front of any staff member, including and especially teachers.
For sure. And like you said, literally we get inquiries or, our referrals that literally come from everywhere. It could literally just be a concerned parent. It can be a teacher who saw something that was different with a student. It can be SRO. It could literally anybody in the school system who just notices something. Because the thing with us, even if a person is referred to services with us, it's not to say that they have a mental health issue. It's just to say, hey, we're not sure what's going on, and can you take a look and maybe meet with the person and assess the situation?
So part of it is going to be training staff members to be able to identify these signs. But I would imagine another part of it is fostering a culture on a school campus in which students feel like it's okay to express that you're having these problems, that it's not a sign of weakness, but it's in fact a sign of strength. And it's okay to communicate that you're having mental health issues. Do you have any advice for school administrators on how to foster that kind of culture on their campus where this can be talked about openly?
My suggestion would be, like I said, have providers come in, have them, and meet not only with staff, meet with the parents, just so everybody's all on the same page, and not just Chrysalis, as a provider, but literally all different resources that can just educate everyone. Because, like I said, my position is director of community relations, so my big thing is creating a culture of awareness and how we work with the community and getting away from the stigma of mental health. So when we go in, we're literally going in to meet with the social workers, teachers, and whatnot, because they usually make the referrals. But we're also meeting with principals, assistant principals, and all admin staff as well, because we want them to understand not only what we're doing, but who we are. So they also feel comfortable in working with us as we continue to, because with us, it is more so of a relationship.
Yeah. And I'll say this, I am encouraged by what I'm seeing in pop culture lately, where you're seeing a greater embrace of being able to talk openly about mental health by some of the biggest stars, particularly in sports, right? When you have top athletes like Kevin Love, like Naomi Osaka, like the Olympian, Simone Biles, there we go. When you have people that are willing to come out openly and talk openly about their mental health issues, I think it sends a signal to young people that it's okay for them to talk about it too. So I'm hoping that those sort of top level communications are going to make their way down into the schools and allow students and staff members to feel more open about talking about these issues. I mean, that's my hope anyway.
I definitely think so. What I can say, what I have seen the shift in, I've been working in mental health since 2007. So I've been in it for a little while. And the thing that I have seen is mental health is now looked at as a healthy thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, our mental health, our mental wellness is important versus, oh, I have a mental health problem.
Yeah.
So the shift has been changing just to create a different culture around mental health altogether.
I saw this really funny tweet some months ago where somebody was talking about sort of the generational difference about how we talk about mental health, where it's like in the old days, like you didn't even mention that you were going to see a therapist. And now it's like you're on Twitter being like, yo, guess what the therapist told me today?
Right.
And that's such a positive development to me. That the idea that like it's no longer considered a weakness,
For sure.
and that it's something we want to encourage in people who may not even feel like they have a particularly debilitating mental health need,
Right.
but just to go to a therapist is like a tune-up of sorts.
Yep.
That stuff's really, really important. And beyond just mental health interventions, Chrysalis provides a wide range of specialized programs for schools, sexual trauma counseling, postpartum depression counseling. Can you talk a little about those offerings?
Yeah, for sure. So, like you said, outside of mental health and substance abuse, like I said, we're all inclusive of everything. So literally it can be a person that's experiencing grief, a person that adjustment disorder, just behaviors that aren't typical behaviors from a kid. So all of those type of things. But our specialized programs with sexual trauma is more so for those kids and individuals who have experienced any type of sexual trauma. Usually it's a reactive behavior in which they've been traumatized themselves, and now they're reacting and also committing a sexual act to someone as well. So for the individuals that are under the age of 18, we actually have a program for the offenders and victims of sexual trauma. For the individuals that are over the age of 18, we actually focus that curriculum on the victim only if they're over the age of 18. With the postpartum depression, that just kind of goes into the twofold piece of everything that we do, because we do work with the kiddos, anyone over the age of 3 years old, but we work with teenagers, the adolescents, we work with the adults as well. And then we also do family sessions. So our big thing is making sure that we have the whole family dynamic involved. So we just don't do kids. We want and that's kind of
so the services you guys provide, it expands to an entire school community, including families.
Correct. So a lot of times it may be a kiddo that's referred, but then we go into the home and we find out, hey, it's not so much the kiddo, it's something going on with the family dynamic.
You really have to set it up that way, right? If you're not reaching the families, then you can't really be helping the kids completely either.
Right.
That makes perfect sense to me. For the school administrators out there, for the teachers who want to learn more, who think that these services are right up their alley, where would they go?
ChrysalisHealth.com is the best place to go. We have all of our services kind of listed there. You can make a referral there. You can literally ask a question there, and they will respond to you and give you feedback, answer the question, and even connect you to the correct department that they need to be connected to. And then from there, we set everything up. They don't have to do anything with us. We call them and get everything going.
Blaire Jackson, everybody. He is the Director of Community Relations at Chrysalis Health. Before we let you go, sir, one last question. We've been asking it of all the guests that have sat in that chair today. And I'm excited to hear your answer coming at this from a different perspective.
Okay.
But if with the snap of your fingers, you could make any change to the education system, what change would it be?
All right, that's a tough question for me because I'm not heavily involved in the school system. But I would say, I guess from my standpoint, dealing with mental health would just be to don't be afraid of the mental health. Don't get involved in stigma. Invite all providers. There's not a wrong provider. There's not a wrong resource. There's so many resources out there, and sometimes I think that the schools just don't know about it.
Yeah.
So just the awareness of all the resources, because there's a lot of resources that could be really helpful, not only to the students, but also the teachers and administration, but they just don't know about it.
Yes. All right. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting chrysalishealth.com. Blaire, this has been a real treat. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we are 1 hour away from finishing up our live stream. You still have time, if you haven't done so already, to click that QR code in the corner of your screen that you're seeing and like, follow, subscribe to our social media accounts, to our YouTube page, so you can sign up for our drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card. We'd love very much to have you all part of the Academica media community and to participate in all the fantastic podcasts and other programs that we're running on our network. We're going to take a quick break and come right back for our final segment here. Thanks so much for checking out our live stream.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.